Well, hello, everyone. And it is the 19th of August, getting close to Labor Day when we technically get back to work. But wait a minute, we've been working all summer. What's up with that? Tom Marchesello in the house. How you doing, my friend?
Good, good. I'd like to say I'm on a tropical beach, but it's just a background.
Well, you actually do live pretty near a tropical beach. I mean, there is
Yeah, I
that.
passed by it. The only problem with it, we have red tide right now, and it's bad, dude. It's like, oh my gosh, it's nuts.
Stinky and bad news. I know. It's
Bad news,
really,
yeah.
really gnarly. I know it is not great, but it is a fact. Well, here's the problem. It's all the nitrates falling into the ocean, the bay and the ocean, right?
Well, we talked about that Piney Point stuff. It's like you can't continue to pollute with, all this extra phosphates and nitrates and stuff and think you can just dump your garbage in the oceans and the waterways. And, it just doesn't work. You overload the system and it doesn't have its ability to oxygenate. So you take your nice anaerobic, aerobic systems and you make them anaerobic, which means they're starving for oxygen and things die.
Algae does its job.
That's right.
Right? It's actually very good. Well, people are coming on board. I'm going to go ahead and do the honors here, and then we're going to step right into your report.
Sure.
So let's just do some of the. So it is water. What WING as we call it. Water is the new gold, and it is the world's only vital. Why? Because without water, where are we? Scarce, because fresh water is a tiny percentage of the world's water, and we keep wrecking it. And finally, recession-proof. Water never fails to go up because the worse things get, the better it is for water. And it is an unfortunate fact, but it is what makes water such a really interesting asset. So, of course, puedes escuchar en español. We have Heather on the other line interpreting and in live in real time. And you just click on that globe symbol and you are listening to this show in Spanish. All right. And then we have the usual safe harbor, which says, we're doing our very best to tell you how it is. This is a very frank briefing. Every week I tell you exactly what's going on. And more than any other public company, I believe, in the world, nobody else tells you as much as I do. And of course, I have to say all kinds of disclaimers, but we think it's very healthy. But at the same time, we have to tell you that, sometimes we just have to correct ourselves. That's how it is. So with that, I'm going to move into Tom Marchesello's quick update on operations. Now, as you recall, ba-boom, we had some nice
Bing, bada bam. Yeah, so we're doing good. The team is really putting in the work. And recently, as you can see by some of the press announcements that Riggs was able to share, we had had a really successful modular water system sale sequence where we finally got past $1 million on that first half. And then Progressive Water then came in screaming with a bunch of really good wins. And then we inked a very strong contract with 3 segments to it that allows us to basically hit quite a significant number on our sales, and it's $5 million plus worth of equipment for different power plants with a very high quality client, and we are very, very proud to be able to do that project.
I did not know that before we acquired PWT, Mark Stevens did a project for the same power company back in 2015.
Yeah, they've been a long-standing customer. We've had quite a number of longstanding customers of this caliber. And so they've, remember PWT under Mark's leadership's been around for 25 years, and then had it, for about almost 20 years before that. So there's a long history of us doing a lot of work with a lot of great clients.
Now, this was a while ago, and Tom, you and I had this conversation today about what is going on that all of a sudden we're getting all this business. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's like the perfect storm in a couple different ways. One of the ones where we were doing well personally, executing our to get ahead on our sales. We purposely went out and stuffed the channel in our pipeline with more sales. So we went into a different mode where we presented to much more engineering firms and design and build firms and architecture firms, and we went to different partner firms and we presented our capabilities. We did a lot of meetings, a lot of education. That then turned into some longer lead time type sales that we matured and nurtured longer. And they then started kind of coming in and closing off. So that was the number one best thing that we did that was directly our responsibility. And the team really, stood up on that. We talk all the time about, COVID was kind of a weird change, and it was in our benefit because people wanted to do business with American-made American companies. And then now we have this infrastructure bill that's coming on the heels of that as well, and that's another positive. I was looking at just even the growth rates of our industry. Our industry traditionally, used to track along at like 3-4% growth rates. Last year clocked 7.5% growth rate. This year and next year on track to do 8 to 9% growth rates. So we're just seeing acceleration just in our category for water, wastewater. And that's, I think, rising tide lifts all boats.
So, but then along with that seemed to come these supply chain issues.
Yeah, we are definitely seeing supply chain issues. It's a fact of life in a lot of different industries, but you saw basic material issues hit in steel, aluminum, copper. Then you saw supply chain now then impacting finished goods, so pumps, valves, hoses, things of that nature. And we also saw some impacts from, just like weird stuff, shifts in the way the manufacturing happening, plus, some changes to who's able to deliver. So there's just longer lead times. We have to be a lot better and a lot tighter about ordering in advance, try to get something in our favor,
Oh yeah, and this is where some of the capital that we're accumulating, we should be able to use it to talk a little bit about that special plastic we use and how we can get some control of that.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. So we have like a really incredible capability with our special plastics where we use these, tough, thick plastics that are super durable, and that's a replacement for the old steel, fiberglass type tankages. And so, we have different vendors for this type of material. But one of the places that we were able to source the material and get it to us, there's a couple different vendors. We were purchasing more of our stuff kind of more just in time, and it was okay while we were operating, in the past. But now those lead times have gotten so long, and we have such a big pipeline of projects we have to deliver. It's easier for me to buy a bulk of the plastic material coming from the factory rather than the middleman, and then I can have it sent in a container, put it on site, so that I just open the doors and pull all the material out as I need it and build my tankage materials. And we'll actually end up saving ourselves, 20% just in the material itself if I buy in bulk. So that's the kind of stuff that we're finally able to do because we have a nice backlog. We know who we're doing business with. And if we order properly, I'll also reduce my cycle time by about a month to a month and a half, which allows me to turn over my accounts receivable quicker, which brings in our cash faster. So that's the stuff we're working on.
Well, that is super. Thank you for that update. And I'm loving how, we did all this work in the last almost 2 years now to find ways beyond our core business to take off, and other core business takes off, which is great. I mean,
it's great. Well, that's what you want.
It's like, okay, I'll take that too.
Look, you were in the industry a long time. You were out there early saying, hey, water is the big deal. Like it's quite the thing. And then Ken and you really crafted a good message around the fact that, we hit a big trend. It was a big trend. It's a very big mega trend. And it's not something that's just going away. It's actually really driving into many, many decades of need. I do dabble every now and then in kind of the ESG kind of aspects of the conservatorship and the environmental stuff, as well as, some of the issues of, dealing with the underserved communities. And there's such incredible demand for water everywhere you look, let alone the stuff we're doing for industrial commercial, right? It's not letting up anytime soon. It's amazing.
And I love the fact that we are in that segment that the big, large water companies just can't get down to. And I think a lot of the business we're getting in Texas is being delegated by some of these companies that just, yes, too much, right?
Well, that's what we saw. Like, as you see things like the infrastructure bill come along, we know some of the bigger contractors are certainly well positioned to earn that business first because they're just more politically connected, which is great. But then they sub it out, right? And we're always great as part of the people who eat on that subcontracting plate, right? So we've been around a long time. We have good capability. As long as we perform and, we make sure we put our hand in the pie, we take what we need to do and participate with everybody.
Fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you. I'm going to continue. Feel free to stick around. I'm going to get to another very interesting topic that you know about. Cool. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and discuss the next little topic here, which is we got some press. Bankless Times and Phoenix. Now, both of these stories are crypto stories. Let me start with Bankless. Here it is. OriginClear wants to solve our water treatment problems. And it really gets into, everything, all the cool stuff we do, but then talking about how we are, building this water on demand and the decentralized source solutions. So it's a nice, good general article, which is great. And then over here is one that's directly on cryptocurrency, Project Phoenix, which is a very cool publication. And it gets into this whole story. This is written by me about what we're doing. So that's kind of cool. So that's the latest on our in the news, and more to come. Now, I wanted to give you a quick excerpt from a new podcast appearance that's occurred, and I'm going to go ahead and change over to the video optimized mode to play that, and I think you'll enjoy it. So here we go.
Yo, this is Doc G, and today we're talking water with Riggs Eckelberry on the Earn and Invest podcast. Riggs, welcome to the show. Let's get really blunt here right from the beginning. When will the world run out of clean water?
Well, you might say that it's basically already done so. We have these terrible droughts in California happening. There's water disasters happening on a regular basis throughout the world. And only 20% of the world's sewage is actually treated. So we have a real problem, not so much of completely running out of water, but the water being tainted increasingly, the aquifers being messed up. Increasingly, you just can't just take water from the tap. We know that. And I like to say that in America, which is relatively okay, the water will not immediately kill you. So in other words, you won't get typhoid and dysentery, but you can get long-term disease from just drinking the unadulterated tap water. So yes, water is broken, and there's a good reason for it. The first water revolution was big systems like the famous New York, Delaware system, which is vast from the Adirondacks on down, and amazing clean water. It really created New York. And a lot of that stuff was done right up to World War II. Since then, we've had almost no infrastructure projects at all. There's a backlog that by 2025 will be $100 billion a year of underinvestment in our infrastructure. The answer, of course, is decentralization. If the businesses creating the dirty water treat it themselves, then it takes the load off the municipality and allows for the current infrastructure to survive. If a business did its own water treatment, it can reuse it, even if it's only to wash the equipment. That's the net gain. But let's have the basics in place. Let's clean what we make dirty. Let's treat the wastewater. I mean, come on. That's the fact that we only treat 1/5 of the dirty water in this world means 4/5 are ending up in lakes, rivers, and oceans. And that, I'm sorry, we live in a goldfish bowl.
Who are OriginClear's customers? What is the technology you're using?
The big water companies, Veolia, American Water Works, and so forth, they like to work with the big projects because it's the same amount of trouble for me to do a small city as a brewery. So right away, you have a separation and a market opportunity. But here's the big problem. That brewery is in the business of making beer, not cleaning water. It does not have the capital to treat that water. It's like, what do I do? I don't want to. I just want to pay my water bill. Can I just pay my water bill? Right? And so we realized, wait a minute, why don't we simply provide metered water? Don't make these people pay up front. We call it water on demand. And now it becomes water as a service. So now you simply sign up with OriginClear to have your water treated over a 15-year period, let's say, and you pay on the meter. That is the new era, which is people are very excited about it. We call it total outsourced water. Why? Because not only do they pay by the gallon, but we also take care of the filter maintenance. Just don't have a problem. So we really think that we have almost complete ownership of this lower segment.
I mean, as things stand now, don't the municipalities, doesn't the government kind of take care of it for you at the moment?
No, the share of water, of federal contribution to municipalities has gone from 76% to 9%. Either they will not accept it or they will charge very high rates for it, punitive tariff rates. The inflation of water rates far exceeds the core inflation index.
Tell me about that phrase, water is the new gold. You say that it's the world's only vital, scarce, and recession-proof market. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, water's new gold. We don't claim to be creative. This is a term coined by Fortune magazine and repeated by MarketWatch and others. So water is the new gold is the idea that it is becoming in this 21st century is becoming a tradable asset. Year in, year out, water just keeps getting more and more valuable because it's perhaps less of it, perhaps it's getting dirtier, et cetera. One of the problems with water is there's no water market. Water is local. You can't move the water that's in Clearwater to Atlanta, but if you abstract it into a financial vehicle, now you can enable trading, and that starts to become really interesting for people to hedge their water costs and so forth.
What are the current opportunities for an individual investor? You said that there are some capital opportunities. If I am an accredited investor out there and I'm hearing what you're saying right now and saying, wow, I really want to get in on water.
Well, speaking strictly about us, we have private placements that enable us to develop all this stuff because we basically had to start from scratch. It's almost like a biotech play in terms of duration. The good news is that we feel we're at the end of that death march and that we're actually getting the numbers are starting to kick into gear. So people can invest in OriginClear.
I know part of your dream is that there'll be more of a global water market. And I think that gets us into this issue of cryptocurrency and non-fungible tokens and how that can play into this market. Tell us what you've been working on.
Right. So the beauty, of course, I'm talking about water decentralization, and the whole crypto world is decentralized finance. It's basically the same thing, but applied to money. The beautiful thing about, and people say, well, what's this blockchain thing, crypto? Blockchain is just software. Just say, okay, blockchain is very, very good software that's highly decentralized. It enables it all. Fine, let's just put that aside. We say cryptocurrency. Why? Crypto because it's secure, and currency because it is a money. It is a coin. And we think that increasingly the world is going to create a coin for each specialized type of asset. There'll be coins for everything. There already are. There's a very good solar energy coin, for example. It's worth spending the time and energy to represent water with a coin. In order to be able to have a currency, you got to have a connection between the actual commodity and the money. So this advent of water on demand, water as a service now enables us to go, guess what? When you invest in water on demand, you will get a predictable return, and it can be expressed as a coin, which is really just a little smart contract that says, I'm going to pay Doc G X amount of profits for the next 25 years. And because it's a coin and there's a market, maybe he can sell that for cheaper and get it earlier and all that good stuff. So it creates a market. And that's the interesting part about it is to encapsulate the actual revenue that's coming from these new breed of pay-per-gallon water systems, because the water and the money are connected, and we can do a simple abstraction or packaging of it into a coin. Now, that's very nice, but it's also still elite. It still only helps the investors. There's a second part of it, which I've been working on, which is called Clear Aqua. And Clear Aqua is the coin, the water coin for the world. Whatever the rules are, we're still working them out, but you get into the community and you can start to say, hey, guess what? I'm in South Bend, Indiana, and the water's crappy here. Can we do something about it? And then it uses this very well vetted delegate system that coins like EOS and Steemit use to then aggregate and filter these community concerns and turn them into proposals. And on the other side, we have the financing coin. So it's a dual token universe. It's moving quickly. By quickly, I mean that we may have something perhaps by the end of the year. Because the good news about crypto these days is a lot of pre-built stuff. There's a lot of what we call white label. I see it as the way to scale up. Why? Crypto has no boundaries. It's frictionless. A grandmother in Korea can invest in a trailer park in Alabama. So it widely democratizes the water investment process. It eventually creates a world market. And it most importantly of all, it involves everybody. And in the developing world, they've told us, please don't give us free stuff anymore. We want entrepreneurial opportunities. And so that too will help in that area.
It seems to me what you're saying is crypto allows for the buying, selling, trading, and funding of decentralized water in such a way that something like the stock or bond market never could because of the decentralization. So you can invest in quote unquote smaller projects in disparate places through crypto, whereas up to this point, all we can really invest in are these incredibly big projects from companies that are public and in the stock market, or from bonds or whatever huge vehicles that have already been created. Crypto really lets you be much more granular and fund these smaller decentralized projects. Is that am I understanding correctly?
That's correct. Now, it's not to say that over time you couldn't do a similar thing with equities, but it would take 20 years or more, because you'd have to establish so much infrastructure. Whereas, crypto is much lighter that way. It's got this great intelligence that you can program.
And what these cryptos represent is almost like you said, these small payment contracts based on an initial investment.
They have to represent, it's like pork bellies. They have to represent an actual valuable thing. You can say Bitcoin doesn't represent anything, but a water coin would. The investment grade. So there's remember there's two. The investment grade one, which we call $H2O, is the one that is like a bond. And it's the one that pays you out for your investment. And then on the other side is Clear Aqua, which is pure community coin. It's not intended to be a security. It's basically kumbaya, kumbaya for water, right? But it's a way for people to push concerns up and have them eventually turn into proposals.
So I want to pivot for a moment. You mentioned philanthro investors before. Talk to me a little bit about water philanthropy. What is happening? Is OriginClear involved in that?
Well, it's fascinating because last year when we were starting to develop this whole concept of water on demand, this gentleman, Ivan Ans, came along to one of my briefings. And he had built a real estate play called Equity and Help into, now I think it's number 85 on the Fortune, on the Inc. 5000. So it's incredibly fast growing. And what he managed to do is put a lot of people into houses they could not otherwise afford because they didn't have good credit, because they were broke, whatever. And they were able to buy a house for less than the cost of renting it. And then he called that concept philanthro investing, because the investors make double-digit returns and they're doing good at the same time. So then he broadened it. He said, well, I want to do the same thing in water. I want to do it in energy, et cetera, et cetera. We very quickly got into a relationship. And what they did was they basically leveraged their big real estate investor base and started giving them choices, right? Hey, you can do a water thing. And that really transformed us. And they are in 19 countries, a lot of them in Latin America. We've gotten investments already from Argentina, because we will accept real estate as investments and we'll monetize them ourselves. Well, let me tell you something. People don't mind going, okay, I don't have to go through the trouble of selling this. I'll just go ahead and deed it over and get a bunch of stock and da-da-da. So yes, we are strongly, dedicated to water and philanthropy investing through our partners. Doc, it never happens that a partner comes along and does this magic. How many frogs do I have to kiss? But there is a prince once in a while.
This has been the Earn and Invest podcast. On behalf of myself, Doc G, I'd like to thank Riggs Eckelberry. That's a wrap.
Thank you. Now, I want to make it clear that this is not a video podcast. It's an audio podcast, but Doc G was kind enough to let me have the tape. And so my brother, Steven, the man with too many cameras, went ahead and turned it into a show. And I hope you enjoyed it. I think it was a good little interview and it worked well. So let me just check out. There's some there's some great stuff here from Ivan. When with all kinds of good stories about how the world is running out of water. And now I'm happy to say that Equity and Help made it the third year in a row on the Inc. 500. All right. So they are number 374 on the Inc. 5000. And they're on the smaller group, which is Inc. 500. And I believe they're very, very high up in the Florida group. So my congratulations to Ivan, who's along with Bella, his wife, Artie, the CEO, Vendi, who's in VP of Expansion, George Mentis, who's joined as a CMO, and all the other team that are helping us. You are amazing. So that's greatly, greatly appreciated. So we're now going to quickly move on. And wow, third year on the Inc. 500. So cool. Of course, we don't qualify because we're public, but nonetheless, it is an amazing, amazing thing. So I'm going to try not to, well, actually, wait, I got to fix this because the thumbnails, it can't be optimized for video. So let me just turn off the video optimization and share the screen again. And here we go. And that was Doc G, an internal medicine physician who moved over, interestingly enough, to conversations about money and life. So that was a really cool little podcast. Much appreciated. Much more coming from that direction. And you'll be seeing my podcast bookings start up again. Okay, quickly. News from the Cryptoverse. What's going on? Well, it turns out that the NFT world is taking off. So NFT search has peaked in March, but then interestingly enough, the actual sales on OpenSea, which is the largest NFT market, after a considerable lag, have taken off. Now, what does NFT mean? And it's a word I wish they didn't use because nobody understands it. Fungible means you can switch it. A gallon of gasoline is a gallon of gasoline, whether you buy it in New York or Florida. A dollar bill is a dollar bill. They may have separate serial numbers, but you can switch them. They're fungible. So non-fungible means they're unique. You cannot switch them. And this could be the tech we use for our $H2O dividend packaging. And as you see, NFTs are really happening. These NFTs that we have are intended to be the lifetime value of these interesting contracts that we have coming out of these water on demand things, and they get issued as tokens. And each of these tokens holds the entire future value of dividends. That's great. It's future marketplace, as I discussed with Doc G. But first, we are doing this. Clear Aqua Network, because we want to empower communities to solve water problems. And so we're just doing the left-hand side here, which is, alerts bubbling up through the Clear Aqua community to delegates. And also there's something called validators. It's all very cool. And then eventually ends up with proposals where clearaqua.org funnels them over to the Capitol to solve the problems. Status update. Well, we have an updated proposal. As you can see now, we're going to have them involved. We're going to have them build in a very flexible environment called FlowTrack. And they're also going to get involved with the OriginClear website to make that very sexy and cool. And in the sort of 75-day timeline, we also will be focusing on building launch resources, et cetera. So we're on the verge of doing this deal. We're just doing some of the little back and forth. So that's where that's at. And new development, planning for acquisitions. And that is something that is near and dear to my heart. As you know, 2015, we acquired Progressive Water. And in 2018, we did an acqui-hire, you might say. We brought in a guru from who creates these modular water systems, and we got his patents and so forth under master license. And so that was our second big, quote unquote, acquisition. But now we received some term sheets to finance acquisitions. Now, these are non-binding term sheets and it's early stage, but I wanted to share it with you because, and again, financing in the acquisitions may not occur, so don't bank on it. Nonetheless, I'm very excited about the potential partners here, and it does seem feasible. So the first thing is I really want us to be able to manage water on demand systems. What do I mean by that? Well, that's this stuff down here where you have sensors, goes into a database, performance, and you bill by the gallon. All that capability is stuff that is actually fairly sophisticated. And we have a partner in India, Permionics, one of our top licensees, who has that capability, and they've offered it, and we'll be using that for sure. But ultimately, it's best to own a company in the space, isn't it? So that's that part. And then the second big part is to acquire profitable industrial water companies for their revenue, their profits, their capacity, right? Because back in water on demand, we start bringing a lot of money on the capital side. We need to have the ability to deliver. Now, the fact that we don't own a company is not going to stop us from giving them business, but you make more money when you give business to your own companies. So a little bit of empire building going on here. And finally, a lot of them have great technology. So again, don't back on it yet, but it's for real. And it's one of the most exciting things I'm doing. Tom, of course, is he's been around the block. He's represented funds on the buy side, and he is going to be teaming up with, we have another exec consultant who works on due diligence. And so we have a team ready to go. So that is really, really cool. Moving on here, because we don't want to keep you too long, but there's been some updates on our fundings, and that is, the Series U, which is basically 150% redemption of the public stock, 4 potential warrants, which means you get to have a guaranteed low price for 4 times in a row, which is super cool. But the Series V, that is the thing that builds the Water on Demand program. And now the redemption is 150% into public stock with 2 times leverage. Now you'd think, well, that's not as good as Series U. Yeah, but you get 25% net profits for up to 25 years. And we're expanding Series V up to $300 million because we, our portal marketing firm, which actually did Impossible Foods, they're very, very prestigious, want to go after small funds in the $100 million range. So this is interesting. $300 million generates a lot of money, $2 billion for OriginClear. So really, really interesting. So be sure to get your personal briefing from Mr. Ken B. He is a busy man these days, but he knows what's going on. And I highly recommend that you click on oc.gold/Ken. Please be accredited. If you are not accredited, we still want to have you in the list. Why? Because we are restarting our unaccredited investor offering that is coming down the pike. It's going to take a month or 2 to pull together, just because that's what it takes to get the SEC to review it and so forth. But it is going to happen, and I'm quite sure, personally sure, that in Q4 we'll have it together. All right, so we have somebody else with a little chat. Let's just check it out. And Ken makes it very clear that if you're non-US, you can speak to him. What does that mean? That means if you are in Canada, Mexico, or whatever, you are free to invest in OriginClear. It's assumed you're accredited, but we are not required to verify it. In the US, we are supposed to take, and we do take, reasonable steps to verify your accreditation. If you're non-US, you're expected to be accredited in the laws of your own country, and you basically certify that you are. And Ivan tells us that we'll soon have our first investor from El Salvador, which is fantastic, in Central America. That is super, super cool. So thank you, Ivan. And we have more to come, in fact, and oh, yes. This is cool. Ivan, thank you. We just opened a corporate Bitcoin account on the Kraken exchange, because there is a potential $100,000 investment that's going to come in through in Bitcoin. So I guess I'm telling you officially that we will accept Bitcoin or Ethereum for investment. So why not? That happened literally today. So it's good news. So, I do want to see you next week. As you can tell, these are action-packed, lots to tell you. And if you miss one, don't worry, the replays, show up, and you can always look on the website where we have a transcription. You can read it. And of course, it's also transcribed and recorded in video in Spanish. But I love to have you guys and gals on the show with me, because it is so much fun talking to you each week. The most transparent company in the public company space. Anyway, so much more to come. And I'm super excited, loving how it's going. The team is really, the big difference between, let's say, 2018 and today is that I have a real team. I mean, Tom Marchesello is one of the best things that came out of the water chain experience. And there he is again, because water chain, attracted such good talent, and Tom was there, and we had to close it down because A, we couldn't figure out how to monetize the water, which we figured out now, and B, crypto winter set in, 80% losses, et cetera. And he goes, well, you need help with your modular water systems, don't you? I'll go, I kind of do. So we ended up with top exec at OriginClear, and not worthy. And then, of course,
look, this is fun. Remember, we're having fun.
Wait. You must be. I'm not hearing you.
You're not.
Reason,
I'll just be quiet.
That's what it is. Me. I'm not.
Oh, I said no. We're having fun. Remember, this is fun. It's fun to actually do fun things. So
it's fun. It's, you know what? It's exactly right. This is becoming more and more. It's starting to remind me more and more of what these tech things we did in the 90s. You did more things more in the 2000s, but for me, the early days of the .com were like, whoa, oh my God, and that was, it feels like that now. It's got that buzzy feeling to it. And to think that would happen in water, unbelievable, right? Never happened.
I think it's like, it's actually an interesting spot, as you're seeing innovation wanting to take place in a lot of areas that were overlooked for so long because they weren't really exciting or people didn't know how to monetize them. And then you see a lot of lessons learned from tech industry, plus now the crypto industry, saying, hey, you can make money, and it's so much more opportunistic than it ever used to be, because it's about somebody deciding they want to step up, deciding they want to do the business, and then just going after it. You're not necessarily having to ask permission to go do this stuff around the world because the need's so great and there's really nobody standing in your way to do it. The truth is they want you to do it.
It's true. Unlike energy, where the utilities are fighting decentralization, in water, they're saying, please go ahead, treat the water. We can't handle it. So that's, and it's interesting now that Ivan is piping up here saying that we opened Kraken to convert decentralized money to decentralized water. Kind of funny. That's kind of cute. But it is all kind of happening. So you came along, Ken Berenger came along and transformed all our capital raising so that we literally are able to seriously raise capital. And of course, in 2020, the Philanthropic Investors team came on. We have just a great team, and we need more. Progressive Water, 2018, we had Dan Early come in. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all very much. And it was a pleasure having you tonight. Do tune in next week. And bye for now. I'm going to switch off the video because Heather needs to catch up. So good night.